Om Aginatamandasya Janajana Savakata Chaksusmilitanjina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Thank you, Prabhupada, for opening my eyes. So, we ended yesterday with a message about caring for devotees. All these stories about Prabhupada and his glories has culminated to this point in time where it's wonderful that we have a temple like this. And it's wonderful that we have such, each place has really wonderful devotees, and they have a service attitude, and that's what Prabhupada instilled in us, and it still endures, but yet there's been a lot of neglect, and that's why I started with some people this Vedic Care project, because we started this based on love and trust, our family. And we built this movement based on love and trust. And Prabhupada was our guide and is our guide, and yet we neglect each other. Sometimes we're impersonal within impersonal guise. So that's why I started this. And there's a few short films, but then again, we're going to get into tonight we're going to see how Krishna consciousness started in England. Last night we discussed San Francisco, and tomorrow we're going to do India, although I may get out of chronological if a story says, okay, tell that story before you forget it. By the way, is there something wrong with this area of the, it looks like everybody's avoiding that part of the temple. Some kind of steam under the floor or something. And you will have to endure some of the same stories. Is that all right?
Right.
Because some of the people heard these before, but you know, we chant the same song every day, you know, so we can, we also read some of the same verses all the time. So, you will please endure, because I pretty much do it chronologically. So, they were here. So now can we show them? Okay. So, this care project has started, and the first thing we decided to do is have outreach teams, because a lot of devotees have really kind hearts, and so we're training them to have outreach, which means we assist people in homes and hospitals. Let's say the person is not a Vaishnava family. We come, we have MP3s, we will sing and we will read the Shastra and we will do the transition Shraddha with Tulsi. We have a caregiver's course. Right now, this was a vision I had, and now there's 4 people right now that are being assisted. People who couldn't walk and couldn't cook. They had to cook pasta once a week and put chutney on it for the sauce. So, Vrindavan has given us in the resort 2 rooms. All we have to do is pay for the utilities. And it's an Ayurvedic clinic. And it's a healing clinic because it's a spa. So the spa is not the same place for sick people. Part of the vision is a healing clinic. That's my profession. And so it's going to heal, as Prabhupada said, the inmates. He called us inmates. and the public. And it's also the Krishna conscious arts and culture for healing. Art therapy, dance therapy, kirtan therapy, permaculture farming, off the grid. So I wanted in every continent, every temple could have a room at least. If someone gets sick, don't throw us out to pasture after we've done our service. But each continent can have a model to help everybody how to do it. So we had a wonderful meeting is it New Govardhan Farm? The president said, give me a plan. When the president says, give you a plan, I've had so many meetings, and usually they're very abstract and nebulous, and nothing gets done, and you can tell. And he said, he's a nuts and bolts guy. So the next day we had a meeting and 35 people showed up, including an architect who will give us the plan, which so happens to be the same plan we're doing in Sedona, Arizona. I've been asked to be on the faculty of a healing center, and they said they have 5 acres, and they said we can build on it. And they saw the Hare Krishna film, and they said other Ayurvedic clinics have some Swami, and I knew the one they were talking about, Mount Madonna. And so they said we would like Prabhupada to be our guru, and me kind of a guru in residence. Yeah. So it's happening in England, but I think it's going to happen in Australia, and what it means is that I'm going to come back to get it started, and we have a great team. Krishna is sending people daily. This is Prabhupada's formula: people, places, and then Lakshmi. We do need Lakshmi, but that's happening too. We have all sorts of things going on. Krishna sent me such a dynamic team who made this film. It's the VCC promo. You'll see these films, the kind of people that Krishna sent, and so for me, just objectively, even if I wasn't a devotee, it's something creative and meaningful, and that will keep you alive forever and young. So Krishna has blessed me, and as you see, tonight you will see how we started London with nothing. So we started this with nothing but a vision, and so that's also why I'm confident, because I saw it. Same thing in Vrindavan. I don't know about building Prabhupada. Krishna will help you. We're going to get to that tomorrow. So, here's the films, VCC Vedic Care Charity, and then I'm going to do the story about London. Thank you. See, we started this movement with none of this stuff. I said to Prabhupada, when the telex came out, we should have a telex in every temple for communication. And he said, yes, but they just might gossip on it. Like Facebook, you know. But you'll see tomorrow, a whole Getting a Palace broke down because we didn't have fax communication. Well, now we have it in our pockets, the whole. Okay, here it is.
places like the Bible, the Quran, and so forth. Don't you run into conflicts at all or contradictions in those particular philosophies?
I don't find any conflict because the ultimate goal is God. So you have to understand God and try to love Him. So you can go through any religious process if the goal is attained, that you understand what is goal and you try to love Him, then your life is perfect.
Why do we see so many of your followers chanting almost all the time?
Chanting means to keep association with God always.
So you have to audibly chant Hare Krishna?
Yeah. This is transcendental vibration. Just like a radio message, if you keep contact with the radio message, then you know everything what is going on outside. Similarly, this transcendental sound, Hare Krishna, if you chant, then you keep connection with God directly.
Thank you very much, Your Divine Grace. It's been our privilege to talk with you and to meet you, and hopefully we can see you again when you return.
Charitable Trust is a global organization for providing ecumenical care through a network of member eco-villages, temples, and farms, giving all those who seek enlightenment and a healthy lifestyle, spiritual, medical, and educational services, a worldwide oasis of love. Spiritual seekers in need or not, can come, associate, live and be treated in an enlivening and nourishing atmosphere. And when the time comes, receive God-conscious hospice care for a glorious transition from this life. At the BCC, we are focused on preventive and spiritually enlivening health care. We are promoting one simple idea, that we must provide essential loving support and holistic health care for spiritual seekers and all devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. We aim to provide complete, multifaceted healing services, offering each recipient of Vedic care a safe and self-sufficient spiritual environment. The VCC is a gateway to the spiritual world. World-class professionals as ambassadors and advisors are part of this worldwide compassionate endeavor so we may achieve the wonderful goal, simply caring for one another. The desert Southwest in the U.S. is the ideal location for VCC senior care, hospice care, permaculture, arts, and community building. The vision is big, and we need all the help we can get. You can volunteer, you can give gifts, you can donate, or you can join us as an ambassador. Please come and let's create a brand new world together.
And if you love Krishna, then you love in this moment. You're not interested in to kill him in the land. That is real.
Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Jamuna Devi Das, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Srila Swami, Vishnu Jnana Swami, Dayananda Thakur, Tamal Krishna Goswami, Sriman George Harrison, Sri Bhuvanath Das, Chandra Bali Das, Dudama Swami Das, Rupendra Das, and there are many more. Our hearts reach out to all the other unsung heroes and heroines that work endlessly and don't get recognized very much. Our process is serving one another. That is why we started the Vedic Care and Charity Trust. Because these people now, at the ending time of their life, need care, support, and help. Right now, there are devotees who need care.
So I think the message speaks for itself. And now we'll get on with the story of how Prabhupada helped us was the ringleader of bringing Krishna to every town and village. So, as I said yesterday, then he asked Mukunda, Janaki, Jamuna, myself, Samashanda, Malati, and little Saraswati to go to London. Now, this was very new in our Krishna conscious life, perhaps 8 months, and he sent us to Montreal, and he gave us second Brahmin initiation. Previously we were barbarians, and now we're Brahmins. And he trusted us so much to send us to the place where his spiritual master sent the top 3 sannyasis in the 40s to do something in London. And they found one person who became a disciple and did a few talks in a place called Conway Hall. And so Prabhupada thought this was very important, and he asked us to do that. And as I said, our plan was we should meet the Beatles, because at that time Bob Dylan and the Beatles were singing songs that were changing people's lives. And by the way, this book, Love, Medicine, and Music, it's my journey before I was a devotee, and in it is a story with Bob Dylan and myself, because I already knew him, and we were at a political meeting, and he was dating Joan Baez at the time, and everybody was doing political rhetoric, and she was right there, and he was in the corner feeling very antsy and nervous. And I knew him from before, so we went over there and we had a conversation, because By that time, I was disenchanted, pun intended, with the civil rights movement, how it changed from the beginning. And that's the nature of movements, by the way. So we came to the conclusion that we can do more with song and story than with political rhetoric, because people resist political rhetoric, but story and song will reach people's hearts. And so that's a nice conversation. And they were speaking and singing things that were influencing the whole world. So now, the Swamijis kicked us out of the nest, 7, 8, not the first time he kicked me out when I thought something else was happening. Tomorrow I'll tell you the story how he kicked me out of the train in Delhi on the way to Bombay. I thought we were do it, Pani, we're in the station. Get down, see what you can do. I thought we were going to Bombay. Anyway. So much empowerment and trust. So in Montreal, we stopped off in Montreal and he was there, and I asked him, can we wear Lord Nrsimha masks on Harinam? Yeah, the cameras looking black. We asked him childlike questions because we were children, and I saw the shelter side of Lord Nrsimha as well as the fierce side. So I just said, and it was our first color back to Godhead at Lord Nrsimha. So he said yes, but this is how he supported it with a story. And I'm going to use the Victorian language. 50 years before, Charles Chaplin was at a ball dance, and he had tailing coats. And someone ripped his tailing coats halfway up, and Charles Chaplin went into the private room, the WC, and he saw that the tailing coats were ripped halfway up, so he ripped them all the way up like a swallow, and he went back into the ball dance, and then Prabhupada imitated Charles Chaplin dancing sitting down at the ball dance. And then everyone went into the private room and ripped their tailing coats up to the neck. Because, as the Bhagavad Gita says, what great men do, others will follow. But it's also strange. There's the story of the man at the Jamuna River, and he's doing his oblations with the 2 cups of 1 cup water and everything, and every morning he couldn't find his cups in the midst of everyone, so he put 2 clay balls in his cups, and of course after he did his prayers he came back and everybody put 2 clay balls in their cups because they thought, this is the real spirituality. So okay, Prabhupada gave us $50 and sent us off to London. We had $1,050 only, and the $1,000 was from when Shyama was arrested for dealing drugs, and this was money given back. And it's in his book. And this devotee in New York, Prabhupada said, Carl, what do you do for a living? And he says, well, I'm a drug dealer. And Prabhupada said, well, I did that too. And they always forgave us too. Okay, so now we're to London, and they're very stroppy. I don't know if you had a word here, but it's very politically correct. If you don't have enough money, and if you don't have a return ticket, then they won't let you in. So we were we were bold, you'll see. And Krishna gave us intelligence. And we only had 2 names. So Semerson and Maliti went first with $1,050. We went to Amsterdam, they sent it back to Jamuna and I. We came up, we had $1,040, the bank tickets. And then Malati, Semerson, we had $1,030. Okay, come on. And then we lived with a doctor in the suburbs, but some people were coming to Kirtan, but we knew we had to get to the center of London. And Samarshunda bought this little red pickup truck, which had a crank. And he said that one day it wouldn't work, and I was cranking it, and apparently my dhoti flew up with the crank. I don't remember, but he tends to exaggerate. But I will get to the story. I'm going to tell it now, even though it's part of the thing a little bit later. It's because devotees are so enthusiastic. Just Samarshunda, Mukunda, myself, and Jamuna dealt with George, because one time he was walking and a devotee bowed down in a mud puddle, and George. So when the Beatles were practicing in Apple Records, there was a skylight, and one devotee, it's the famous roof. We were there, Get Back, they did films of it, the roof. But there's a skylight into the rehearsal hall, and the devotee fell through the skylight. And his dhoti did get caught on the shard of glass. He didn't get hurt, but he fell at the feet of John Lennon, who said, "Hey, one of yours, eh, George?" So we had to deal with that. So, but we couldn't get to see the Beatles. We had another name in London which turned out to be very nice. It was a Sadarji family. And we stayed with them. And Prabhupada and I, we went to the Golden Temple together. And what he liked was the Gurdwara, how it fed people. And so this is one of our things we do, we feed people. Even Bhakti Siddhanta said, let's feed people even on Ekadashi. Thank you. So now we're in London, in the suburb of Dr. Coley, but we had to get to the center of London. So we went there was an underground newspaper. Underground newspapers for the young people. And so we started writing articles. The Prahlad story, paintings by Gorsundar and Govindadasi, and I did the text. That was 2 issues. Jamuna did a cover in Sanskrit, Hare Krishna mantra, and calligraphy. We did something in every issue in the underground newspaper. So then, the underground, it was called International Times, and they said, we're moving down the street and this warehouse will be empty, and maybe you can use it if you meet the owner. And so it was perfect in the middle of London, right near High Holborn, right near the British Museum, right near all the Theosophical Society. It was a really good location that Krishna gave us. There was a Bible dispensary that was empty. I was standing in the line, and the man said, "Do you know Samshundar?" And I said, "Yes," and he told us about this. And now, we were still trying to meet the deals, but before we got to temple, this warehouse was our temple, and it was also right near where we ended up. And it was wonderful. So we went to Portsmouth Square. It's this big enclosed place in London. A very rich man, the Samuel's Jewelers, and it was a penthouse, and you could see London for 360 degrees. And Mukunda and Samashinda said to me, "You do the talking, Gurudas." Now in Samashinda's book, he said I went alone, but whatever. The elevator opened, and this man was there. He looked like he never left his apartment. He was like pasty white, emaciated. I don't know if you know what Oscar Wilde looks like. Just, he had a limp handshake. Actually, Oscar Wilde said something very clever. He said, "Be yourself, everyone else is taken." So he had a rare book company, so we talked about Bhagavad Gita. At that time, London was following the spirit of San Francisco. All the young people knew each other, including Rolling Stones, all of us. And he said, "Yes, you can stay in the warehouse." So we moved in, and Malati lived on the bottom floor where the newspapers were with Saraswati, but she lived in a refrigerator box. And we made a little window for the refrigerator box, the cardboard. And Samashinda did a makeshift shower down there. At first we used to have to go to the public baths. Then there was living quarters, then temple quarters, and on the top floor was the Rear Book Company and Michael X, the branch of the black Muslims, which was Malcolm X. And I heard Malcolm X speak because I was part of the civil rights movement before I was a devotee. Very powerful speaker, by any means necessary to overthrow the government. So there's actually a violent organization on the top floor. So again, Samashinda Mukunda said, "You do the talking." Now, in his book, you see how the pieces of the puzzle, and Prabhupada's the ringleader. Anyway, that's the way it is. He said that we all went upstairs and I talked to him. But the way I remember it is I just went up there. Because do you really think Mukunda Maharaj really looks tough, you know? Like, oh yeah, I'm backed up by Mukunda Maharaj. Oh, there's a baby too, you know? Actually, Malati's face might have scared him, but I don't know. Anyway, I went and said, "Hey brother, get another crib because we're going to sing Hare Krishna at 4:30 in the morning." And it turned out I got him out of jail later. We remained friends, but he did move. So, now we had the place, but we hadn't met the Beatles. And then a contingent from California calls us on the phone. "We'd like to come to London." So the contingent was the manager of a singing group called the Grateful Dead. And I don't know, some of you might know it, but it has a following like anything. It's one of the few bands that the followers still exist today like we do, 50 years later. Not quite as pure as us, but, well, that's a whole other thing. It's in the book. But the managers were there, and one of the managers roomed with Srila. You see, Krishna's magic is stranger than fiction, and if you just trust it, you'll have a wonderful Krishna conscious life. It's Navayovana, it's ever fresh. Just let him guide you. It doesn't mean you don't do anything. You plant the seeds. So, with them was the Hells Angels, and the Hells Angels were the toughest gang in the world. They actually, okay, here's the story. In San Francisco, they were our neighbors. I told this yesterday, and they were banging on the wall and this and that, and Prabhupad, we were singing. And so, when we had our mantra rock dance, Allen Ginsberg was there, Swami Kriyananda, a man who thought he was the mayor of San Francisco. He wasn't, he just had a sash. All these people are there. We're afraid of Hell's Angels. What they did is they beat up people and broke up parties. So I thought, if they're going to do this, let's make them our security, and then that will cancel out the Hell's Angels. Now what happened was that everybody thought this was a good idea, and the Hells Angels started to do this as an industry for funds. But it ended up in a place called Altamont, and they actually murdered people. Somebody, it's on film, they were the security, they were really brutal. And they're in this party, and my friend Ken Kesey, the author, I know him from back there, and a Buddhist guy, American Buddhist, and two Hells Angels women, and they had weapons, brass knuckles and guns. It was before 9/11, and two motorcycles, and they wanted to come to London, and could we stay with you? Well, sure. So they come with their motorcycles, and I had to make the Hells Angels take off their boots at the door, and we fed the party lavishly. Jim was the best cook. Fed them. Then, after dinner, we showed a film, the first film of Prabhupada in Boston. And it was sent to us. And when a letter would come from Prabhupada, we'd all read it in public. And it was like that, oh, Prabhupada said this, and we would be sharing. And this sent you with this, oh, look, Prabhupada said this. So the first film of Prabhupada, and he's walking down the street, and he's looking regal, and he's looking like he's in Vaikuntha. And we're saying, there's Prabhupada. Oh, look, he's looking towards the camera a little bit. We hear the Hells Angels are falling asleep on the floor. We think it's an epic, they think it's an old man walking down the street, up and down. And even Hells Angels get jacked back. So, we could have divested them of their weapons, like the Pandavas, but so then they woke up, and Ken Kesey said, why do you need a guru? I gave him an example of a doctor. Well, and he said, yeah, and he said, your guru's the heaviest, which was a compliment. And then I said, by the way, one of the translations for guru is heavy. And he said, heavy. So he's my friend. He became a vegetarian for a while. I cooked for him. But he wrote the book, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He's a great author. So the Hells Angels get up, and they wanted to go someplace. They came here to start a branch of the Hells Angels, just like the Black Muslims had a branch. So Mukunda Maharaj gave them logistics. We'll go there. There's the arts laboratory. All the young people are there. There's a lot of squatters living in those buildings. There's a motorcycle shop around the corner. So Mukunda Maharaj for 20 minutes did the logistics, and he started the Hells Angels branch in London. So, but we still hadn't met the Beatles. So now, we were sending all these things from the underground newspaper to the Apple offices. The Beatles wanted to, at that time they wanted ideas and things, but this man, Peter Asher, he didn't like spirituality, he was throwing things in the rubbish bin. So then, we started to do kirtan at this place, the Arts Laboratory, and they really liked us. And they were having an event called the Alchemical Wedding in Royal Albert Hall. And they said, please come. Please come. So, the idea of the event was silence, nothing. But there was a band on the stage. And there was a line, and you're not supposed to step over it. It was like a meeting of the tribes where nobody was going to speak. But as I said, we're very bold. Now, John and Yoko, Lennon also were there. Everybody in London were there of the underground. All these people, everybody knew one another. John and Yoko were in this canvas covering. John told me it was a Zen thing, that we're there but not there. And then John said, he said, I may be in it and somebody may be prejudiced, but they just see the covering and they'll hire me for a job. We're not this body. We don't identify with this body. He had that. And then I told him about, we don't identify with this body. So they would go places, and it was very funny to see the reporters interviewing this bubble, canvas bubble. And then, later on, after we met him, he asked Yamuna, they asked us to receive awards for them. Me and Samashunda, there's a picture, you can find it someplace on the internet, that they asked Samashunda and I to receive an award for them. And so David Bowie was there, and Lulu, and Dave Clark, all these famous people. And everybody's looking at the camera, and I'm looking so at the camera. Anyway, I have to laugh at myself for that. So, where was I? So John and Yoko later asked me and Jamuna to get in the bubble for them to go to the tape gallery to receive an award. Well, I don't know why I didn't get in that bubble. I'd do it right now in the microsecond. Perhaps because I was the president of the London Temple, I might have want to have a modicum of decor. I don't know. So we didn't go, and we got this devotee, Suridas, who's French-Algerian and not that tall, and his wife Jotila, and she's Irish, and he has a very strong French-Algerian accent, and she has a very Irish accent, and she's tall. And the reporter said, it's definitely John and Yoko in there. And they thought she was John, and he was Yoko. So, now, Roxbury was the roommate of Samashunda, and they were all going to meet the Beatles, and Samashunda said, can I come along? So Rox said, sure. So they're in a room that's very crowded, and the Hells Angels are there, and they want to beat up the Beatles. Like, who the hell are these? That's what they did. And so John looks in this room, it's crowded, and he can tell, he's a street lad. I'm not going to come into this crowded place. There's so many people. Samashunda's in the corner. Paul, And then Ringo, he followed anyway. George looks in and sees this and sees Sam Machine in the corner and goes like straight to it. He said, I've been looking for you. And Sam Machine said, we've been looking for you. George said, I chanted Hare Krishna for 3 days with John. We couldn't stop until we couldn't do it anymore. They bought 100 happening records. It was like, we said, please come to our temple. He came. We fed him. He loved it. He got intoxicated by prasadam. We walked 7 steps together. Chanaka Pandit said, if you walk 7 steps side by side, you're friends for life. He said, this is lovely. Come to my house. We went to his house 2 days hence. Billy Preston was there, a gospel singer, on the electric organ, and one of the Hells Angels girls was now Billy Preston's girlfriend. And George had an altar, and it had Prabhupada on it, and also Sri Yukteswar and Paramahansa Yogananda. But to just show you his eclectic taste, he had a painting of dogs playing poker. I don't know if you've ever seen the painting, but this dog was there, cards. So, actually George was a lot of fun. And because Malati, after we met him, she was living on the floor in the box, on the ground floor. George used to do this Monty Python bit, which was, I was so poor that I lived on the floor. Oh, you had a floor? I was so poor I lived in a box. You had a box? But you did have a box, and Malati did with me. So now we met him, we had a rousing kirtan, he was wonderful. Then we told him we made a demo recording just on a simple tape recorder. It was Govindam and the Hare Krishna mantra. So we said, let's record this. So now we record the Hare Krishna mantra, and we're in the studio, and Paul McCartney's the engineer, and we're getting to know him, and we're just being real nice and giving him things and he's liking to be with us so much so that he's being with us more than his wife. And each one of us, I was doing philosophy, Sam Shinda was befriending him, Mukunda was doing the music. It interchanged, but so the Hare Krishna mantra, we didn't have a chorus, they wanted a chorus. What does George do? He rounds up everybody in the Apple offices. So the chorus of the Hare Krishna mantra is the accountants, mailroom clerks, janitors, the whole, emptied out the Apple offices, you'd be the chorus. And he's teaching Hare Krishna, you see how he brought people. And then at the end, the gong, Malati did the gong, and we thought, we have to do it again, but no, it was perfect. The second one, now we have 36 devotees because we're popular. We're doing kirtan at the Arts Authority. We went with 7, there's 36. What are we going to do? So George says, let them go to your estate, John. Your new estate, they'll help you with the grounds. You have places to live. They can live with you. He said, okay. So we move out to John Lennon's estate. Meanwhile, we were trying to get Bury Place. So we're at John Lennon's estate. The second Govindam, George Martin put the orchestra on it, and he put chorus upon chorus, and George produced it. It was beautiful. And when we sent it to Prabhupada, he cried, and he said, play this in the temple every morning. So So at the alchemical wedding, we went there, but we told them we might chant. And so they said, come anyway, you're such a part of the fabric of this community. It was like San Francisco, young people searching. And so nobody spoke, but we were in 6 different places waiting for a sign. Somebody said, strawberry fields forever. Somebody said, oh, not quite so good as me, but anyways, that was our sign. And we started chanting, and it was supposed to be silent, and Makunda played the best Mridanga, and I played a fair kartal, and Mom T's there with Saraswati on her hip, playing kartals, and I got my camera. I was the first photographer of the movement, so I've got my camera, and you're not supposed to photograph. That's one of the rules of this gathering of Royal Albert Hall. And we're chanting. We broke the second rule. And then this band gets on the microphone doing blues, so I go there, 12-bar blues, hurrying on, and I'm snapping away, and everybody just, because it was supposed to be silent, the whole place burst into joy, and I'm snapping the photographs, and then we left at just the right time, and they closed it down because all the rules were broken. And Krishna just did that. We left, and then it was no good. Chaitra Guru. So, the newspaper, the underground newspaper wrote, in their vegetarian loveliest, they changed the corporeal atmosphere into heaven. And I went to Fleet Street to develop the film. And they said, there she is. Apparently a woman took her clothes off because she was ecstatic. It was the 60s. She left her hat on. They had this big magnifying glass. It looked like a blob of silver bromide, but they were sensational. They had to put her on there. And London, those newspapers like that anyway. And then I had an article, but because they weren't favorable, I took the article. But still, the article was favorable, and there was a picture of Janaki and Jamuna blissfully chanting, the naked girl with the hat, and then the title, Mad Raven at Albert Hall. So I cut out the mad and the naked woman and sent it to Prabhupada. Raven at Albert Hall. We also had an article, Krishna Conscious Startles London. We really did. Now the British upper peak class were coming, all the young searchers and the East Indian community were coming more and more. And we had this, the second name was a man named Tom Dreber, Member of Parliament, and we couldn't get to see him in the House of Commons. But to show you how bold we were, we heard he was having an eye operation, so we piled into the red pickup truck and we go to the hospital, and the 7 of us, like a cartoon character, boom, 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 go next to Tom Dreber, and Jamuna, with her booming voice, says, "Oh, Mr. Dreber, we've been wanting to meet you." He shook like that. He goes like that. It starts to flatline. And the doctors and nurses are running and reviving this guy. And we hear from across the room, "Oh, Mr. Dreber." So like a cartoon character, boom, 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 boom. "Oh, Mr. Dreber, we wanted to..." So we gave him tapes. There was a captive. He helped us. I'll tell you how he helped us. We finally get Berry Place, and the neighbor was complaining that the walls wasn't soundproof, and we claimed it was. And Mr. Dreber, turned out he was a double agent for the KGB and the CID, stranger than fiction. A spy, he was a spy. At any rate, he wrote a letter, it's soundproof, and the neighbor was complaining that the sound was going through the wall and that his wife was fainting and his dog was going yip, yip, yip. And jumping up and down every time he heard the yip, yip. So, now all the officials came, now they were going to deem whether we zoned it. And we didn't have any seats, so we had to borrow seats from the Theosophical Society. And the neighbor had the fencing champion as his solicitor, and we had the Prime Minister, Lord Goodman's solicitor. So the solicitors were there, and they're all deeming whether we should zone this. So this is bold. Now, you must know, does people know the story of when Krishna tricked the people in the Mahabharata by saying Aswatthama the elephant is dead? Okay, so we thought if Krishna can do this, and if he can shapeshift as Abhimanyu in Vrindavan, we can do stuff like this. American stuff like this, okay. So, what we did is, now we're in the hall to deem whether it's soundproof. So there's a big door with a window in it. So now the door's open, rousing kirtan. Door closed. Door open, Madanga. Door closed. Door open, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They said, we can't even hear it in the hall. How can you say it's going in the hall when your wife's fainting and it goes going? So we got it. George Harrison was our guarantor. So George became our friends. He told me something in the way she moved was really a song for Krishna, but they would misunderstand. And he had told me the whole thing about my sweet Lord. And so we were giving to George, and then Prabhupada comes and he said, I came to teach what you've forgotten, love of God. And we live at John Lennon's estate, and he asked Sam Shinde to go get, Krishna dictated this book, Krishna on My Shoulder, so go ask George to publish it for 19,000 pounds. And Sam Shinde said, we just given to George, and Prabhupada said, make me the bad man. At dinner, he couldn't bring it up, finally did. George thought, oh, I thought you were my friend, you're like everybody else. The cottage shook, and the lights went out. And then David Wynn, the sculptor laureate, put the generator on, and the lights go on, and George is smiling and saying, Krishna, must you be so theatrical? And Prabhupada did many miracles. Remind me tomorrow to tell you the story of the rain in Prabhupada. So here on John Lennon's estate, we're walking in the morning, and there's a worm growing for Prabhupada's feet, and I'm saying, oh, it's going to get crushed, but it might be liberated like the Jagannath wish. And then the worm was there, and Prabhupada's feet were there, and I didn't see any indentation, like Yudhishthira's chariot. And then later that morning, the butterfly jumped on his finger. It's all enclosed. So now London is going on very nicely. We get Berry Place. We have the Abhishek inauguration. I'm back there behind the altar. Sam Shinde built things too heavy. He did. The Rath Yatra car collapsed. The first one was too high. It's not Vaishnava upright, but it happened to be too high. Too high. And the second time, it collapsed, and I wrote Prabhupada a letter, it's due to my poor devotion that the car collapsed. And Prabhupada's, the letters were very formal. I've read your letter of such and such date and noted the contents. I have 119 letters from him. So, and they're precious. So he said, I have read your undated, unfinished, unsigned letter. Because I said it's due to my poor devotion. He said, it is not due to your poor devotion, it's due to poor engineering. So see, I'm not just saying this, so they all to collapse, and we're holding it up, Prabhupada and I, at the inauguration. Come in, help us. So London, this is what's going on, and then George gave us the manor, everything was successful, so many people came. Bury Place was, Prabhupada said, was like a family. I was the father, Jamuna was the mother. It was not artificial, because again, we started this all on love and trust, and we're a family, and it worked in London. And Prabhupada proved it by saying, men on one floor, women on the other, and they're not mixing. He always proved it. So this is the London, and tomorrow we're going to go to India, and it's a very fascinating saga in India with kings and prime ministers and sadhus sitting on card tables. Thank you very much.